What made you feel euphoric that night in June?
Well, I didn't believe it was going to happen.
But you wanted it to. We're still. You've been on now for 4 or 5 minutes, and we still don't know what you wanted.
I was expecting when.
So here's something you don't see every day in British politics: a slow but very noticeable shift in the conversation around Brexit. For years, many of the loudest defenders of Brexit insisted it was an unquestionable success. They dismissed criticism, brushed off economic warnings, and told the public that any problems were just short-term adjustments. But now, even voices from the political right, people who once defended or tolerated the project, are starting to admit something that millions of people already suspected. Brexit hasn't delivered what was promised. And the latest example comes from someone you might not expect. Lord Danny Finkelstein, writing in the Times of London, recently made a striking argument. He suggested that the Labour Party should actually start talking openly about the possibility of rejoining the European Union in the future, particularly as the next general election approaches. Now pause and think about that for a moment. This isn't coming from a longtime anti-Brexit activist or a political outsider. This is coming from a respected conservative commentator in one of Britain's most influential newspapers. When voices like that begin acknowledging the reality of what Brexit has done, politically and economically, it tells you something important about where this debate is heading, because the truth is becoming harder and harder to ignore. And that brings us to something that perfectly captures the heart of the problem. One of those moments that reveals exactly how shaky the foundations of the Brexit argument really were. In fact, what you're about to hear is a call-in exchange that has become almost legendary for the way it exposes the contradictions behind the whole project. Before we dive into it, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Now let's watch this together. And afterward, I'll break down exactly what's going on here.
Oliver is in Leyland. Oliver, what would you like to say?
I'd like to tell you why I voted for Brexit.
Okay. Shall I guess?
What?
Shall I guess?
Yeah, have a guess, yeah.
Okay. Is it because you wanted to make our own laws and withdraw from the European superstate that we never agreed to join in the first place?
To some extent, that, yes.
Yeah, because that's all nonsense.
What?
Well,
No,
we did agree to join much more than just a single market back in the early 70s. Ted Heath wrote extensively about it. It's not a super state, and we don't really have the... Oh, go on, never mind.
My dad was a senior officer in one of the big trade unions.
Yeah.
And he said... it was a bit of a joking conversation. He said, you don't like that, do you? And I said, well, yeah, joining a common market seems like a good idea to me. And I couldn't work out, I'd never asked him why he didn't like it. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and he said, you do realise you're voting for the United States of Europe. That's what it's all about. Mm. And I said, I don't want that. I want the common market. I think the common market's a good idea.
Yeah.
And so
who was your friend? And what was his perspective? What was his field of research? Where did he get this conclusion from?
It was somebody I'd worked with, but I'm convinced he'd read all the documents. He was
which documents do you think he'd read, Oliver?
I don't know.
No, but you changed your view on European Union membership as a consequence of what he said.
My dad had already told me.
Right.
And I mean he knew people like Harold Wilson.
Yeah.
He only rubbed shoulders with him. He didn't. Anyway, and so I voted against, and I thought, well, that's it. We're
But what were you voting for?
What was I was voting against going into what was then called the common market.
Right. So we're going back to the early 70s now, are we?
Oh yes.
Right. I'm just interested in why you don't regret voting to leave the European Union, given the long lists of broken promises and irrefutable damage that we've been detailing since 10 o'clock this morning.
It was magic when I heard we were going to get a vote to come out.
It was a brooch of purest green.
No. You're making that's a lovely.
So what were you celebrating? What were you celebrating? Well, I'm not as good as your mate who told you that we were going to be joining an independent. What was it? The United States of Europe. He was even better at words than me because he'd read all the documents. So what were you celebrating when you felt that wonderful euphoria?
Because when I think it was Maastricht. I don't really know.
I just want to focus on one moment. We're jumping through the decades like Doctor Who at the moment. That day, that night, when the result came in and you said you felt, I think the word you used was fantastic or amazing, that euphoria of that moment, what were you celebrating? That
we were out and...
Yes, but what did that... Well, that's just a word, isn't it? What did that mean? What was going to get better? What was going to get better for your country or yourself?
We were going to be able to renegotiate. And
but David Cameron had just undertaken a massive renegotiation. You know that. So what was going to get better? Because we now know that everything's got worse, but you still think it was a good idea. So what was going to get? What made you feel euphoric that night in June?
Well, I didn't believe it was going to happen.
But you wanted it to. We're still. You've been on now for 4 or 5 minutes, and we still don't know what you wanted.
I was expecting when they were talking, was the Canada deal they were talking about, or the Norway
you jumped
deal.
Again now. We're just talking about June 2016. You were celebrating. What did you win?
What did I win? We won our. Oh, you're going to say. You're going to say...
You're doing it again. I'm just asking you what you want. Don't worry about Canada. Don't worry about the 1970s. Don't worry about Harold Wilson. Don't worry about anything that I might be about to say. Just tell me what you want.
Well, we were going to be alongside the United States of Europe.
What did you win? What did you win?
Well, I thought we won the ability to get rid of the bits of the United States of Europe that I didn't want.
For example?
Well, the political side of it.
Yeah, go on. What? What was the thing you wanted to wave goodbye to first?
I was making a joke that night and saying, send some gunboats out to sink foreign fishing boats.
Yeah, hilarious. So what was the thing that you wanted to get rid of first?
The thing that I wanted to get rid of first? Well, everything to do with...
No, just not everything, just one thing.
One thing.
Yeah,
I wanted to...
You've had 6 years to think about it.
Yeah.
Actually, you've had 40. No, don't let me distract you from the central question. I appreciate you're not going to be able to tell me what it is you want. So what was it you were looking forward to getting rid of?
No, what I wanted us to go back to the common market that I thought we were signing up for.
But you voted to leave it. You voted to leave the single market and the customs union. So how was that going to help us go back to it?
I didn't vote to leave the common market.
You did.
I voted to leave the European Union.
Yes, but they were the same thing by 2016, Oliver.
Yes.
So anyway, what you said you couldn't wait to get rid of the political stuff and all the difference.
Yeah.
If you so, give me an example of that, the stuff that you were hoping to, or even perhaps, if I could be so bold, an example of the things you're glad that we have now got rid of.
Well, for example, not being able to only the European Parliament is only able to vote on things.
Yes, but I'm asking about the things that they have voted on. I'm not interested in the procedure of the Parliament, the things that you couldn't wait to get rid of, the things that you were bound by, the rules or the laws that you had to abide by, the regulations that you had to observe, the changes to your life that had been implemented by membership that you couldn't wait to shrug off. What were they?
Well, we have to go back to when Thatcher decided to.
You're back in your TARDIS. It was June 2016.
Well, yeah,
you're celebrating. You're celebrating the things that you don't have to do anymore. What were they?
I'm 75 tomorrow.
Happy birthday.
Yes, thank you. And the whole point is, this business has been on the news ever since we signed up to join. And every time something happened, it was worse for us.
How? Can you give me one example? Do you think?
Yes, I can.
Go on then, because it's been a while.
Yes, I can.
Go on then.
When Margaret Thatcher decided that we were going to be the money changers of Europe,
right,
and we were at that point a fairly important manufacturing country.
Yes.
And you're going to say yes, but we sent all our manufacturing to China because
you keep telling me what I'm going to say. I just wish you'd concentrate on what you're going to say when I ask you what you actually won. It's for the final time, because I'm late for the news and I don't want to interrupt your birthday preparations. What did you win? I say, here's the prize that you celebrated. What are you pointing at?
I'm pointing at the common market.
Right. Have a great birthday, won't you? Lottie Morley's here with your headline.
What you just witnessed is exactly why the Brexit project keeps collapsing under the weight of its own contradictions. Because that exchange wasn't unusual. It happens over and over again whenever the arguments behind Brexit are examined closely. Once the slogans disappear and the conversation turns to specifics, the same problem appears. The reasoning simply falls apart. And it's important to be clear here. Oliver wasn't a fool. He represents something much bigger. He was a voter who believed the story he had been told. Like millions of others, he thought he was voting for something simple and reasonable. In his mind, he wanted Britain to return to the common market, a straightforward trading relationship with Europe without deeper political integration. But that's where the irony becomes impossible to ignore. When James calmly presses him on the details, the contradiction becomes clear almost immediately. The modern version of the common market was the single market, and the vote Oliver cast in 2016 was the very vote that took Britain out of it. So without realizing it, he voted against the exact outcome he believed he supported. And when the conversation moved to specifics, the problem only became more obvious. Oliver couldn't name a single law, a single regulation, or a single concrete benefit that leaving the EU would bring to his life. Not one. And that moment reveals something much bigger about the entire Brexit debate. Because across the political spectrum now, more and more commentators are acknowledging a difficult truth. For ordinary people, the promised benefits were never clearly defined. The campaign relied heavily on powerful slogans, ideas like sovereignty and taking back control. But when you ask what those promises actually meant in practical terms, the answers often disappear. And that's why the earlier admission from Lord Danny Finkelstein is so significant. When a prominent conservative commentator starts suggesting that Britain may eventually need to reconsider its relationship with the European Union, it signals a major shift in the conversation. Because it raises an uncomfortable possibility that the case presented to voters back in 2016 was built on promises that were never really there. But what do you think about this exchange? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you like and subscribe for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.